What is going on, legends? Today we're going to be doing a bit of squid fishing, doing two different methods. Going to be setting up a float. Now this is my number one. Caught countless squid on this jig, on the float as well. I don't know why it works so well, but it's an absolute treat. I think it's called Tiger, the Glow Tiger, but I'm not 100% sure on that. And then on the smaller setup, we're going with a 2.5 white blue glowing jig, and that's been working a treat down at the local jetty as well. What I also want to do when we're down there is just run through the number one method that I use that I think would be a really big help to anyone just starting out in squid fishing. If you ever find yourself with a squid with only one tentacle or a candle on the squid jig, then using this method we're almost guaranteed to be able to get the squid up onto the jetty without losing it. I haven't lost a squid yet using this tactic, so we'll run through that when we're down on the jetty as soon as we hook up to a squid. Hopefully we do. So we're doing a float method, jigging method, and number one tactic for landing a squid. I'll catch you down at Port Mac Jetty. See you down there. Alrighty, this jetty produces some good squid, and I've got high hopes for today. Incoming tide, tide's about halfway in. We're going to chuck out a float and we're going to go do a bit of jigging. It's crystal clear at the minute. The conditions are looking good. That water looks crystal clear. So hopefully, I think one thing to always remember with jetty fishing, you don't always need to go right to the end of the jetty to catch squid, but in this instance, my favourite spot is at the end of the jetty on the left hand side. It produces some good squid. As long as you've got the wind on your back, squid usually bite. It's bloody good down here, good for trevally as well. That's a good sign when you see black spots on the jetty. There's only two other people on here at the minute. It does get busy. Usually gets busy every single night. There's a bunch of people that come down here catching trevally. But hopefully we're going to be the only people up here for a while. Let's see. Alright, we're going to get set up here. We will get one float out straight away. And just off the end of the jetty. That's how far the float's going. Loosen that drag right off. So if any squid does decide to take it, it can. And then we'll just do a few jigs with this with the 2-eye. Go for a bit of a slow retrieval with the 2-eye. Just slowly bring it up to the surface and then let it sink back down. Give it a little go, a little bit shallower maybe. Sometimes these fast retrievals work as well, and actually you just stick baits with trebles on. I've caught quite a few squid down here now with trebles. Have a squid, finally. That took ages, and he's not actually hooked up yet, I don't think. No, I don't think it is. No, it wasn't hooked up, damn it. It just had hold of it. Try again. Oh, I reckon it'll be on that maybe. Finally got one. Just after I turned the camera off, got a squid on, and we've just got to try and get this up there. This is a good time for me to show you sort of a technique for jetties. When they're only just hooked like this, if you give the squid a little bit of slack, it'll pull it back down and actually put a few more tentacles onto it. Want to see is it swim off with it and just get a couple more tentacles wrapped up in it like that, and we're going to try and lift that up to the jetty and hope that it comes all the way. Awesome. This tiger jig is brilliant on the float. Perfect size eating and bait size squid. I'm just going to get the float back down there because I think I saw another one following it. Beautiful, happy with that. Final. That took a while. That took a while. Nice. Squid number one. Finally. But if you see what I mean, that's a really good tip for anyone that does a lot of jetty fishing and doesn't use a hook to get the squids or a net up. Is just give them a bit more time with the jig for them to take it back down. Don't give them too much slack because then they might drop it. But if you give them enough slack for them to take that jig back down and just put a couple more tentacles on it and then pull again, gives you a much better opportunity to pull them up on the jetty. It's perfect down here at the minute because there's a big clump of weed just here. So that'll make the squid feel safe, and then we've got our jig just next to it, just down there, the tiger. And we'll carry on throwing that white one. I think the camera was just off for that, but that shows, especially if you've got a rod that's just sitting on the jetty, why you need to loosen the drag right up, just to let that squid take the jig with it until you can set the hook properly. That's 1-0 to the float. We'll get our light on now. So we'll be able to see a little bit better. We're catching them squids in a minute. Fingers crossed. Flick it back on when we get on some. Just one of these. A bit darker. Yeah, let's hook up. That's a nice squid. That's a very nice squid. To see that yet. But what we'll try and do is get a better hook up on it. This again is just a good example of letting the squid take the squid jig down and waiting for another either tentacle or candle to get onto the hooks. Once you've seen that it's grabbed it again, flip the jig the opposite way to try and grab a couple more tentacles, and then chances of getting it onto the squid sort of tenfold. It's almost guaranteed that you'll be able to lift it onto the jetty then. Straight away on that other jig. So that changed up to the darker jig and just threw it out into the dark. Just on his candle. This is when it's good to let him pull it all the way back in. So you can try and get a couple more tentacles. Because otherwise you won't get them up. Now again, as soon as I see that squid grab the jig with its second candle, I pull the jig quite hard and then it grabs the second one rather than just trying to pull it up on one. I'll put them up now, yep. So that showed just perfect then. So ended up getting 2 of his tentacles, 2 of the candles, instead of just the one. That's just letting him pull it back down towards itself. Nice, and again, got a couple more squid in there. This one is not hooked very well, so this is when we want to try and make it get at least another tentacle on that. Now it is, maybe try and lift it. Yeah, that's nice. One more on the float again as well. Oh, it's not too bad a size. All right, legends, that was actually a pretty good session at the end there. Got 5 or 6 squid at the end of that evening. Hopefully there's some useful tips in there, especially about getting the squid up onto the jetty if you can only see that they've only got one tentacle or one candle on there. There's a few good tips in that video. I'm hopefully going to be chasing some mulloway with all of that squid that we've just caught, so stay tuned. I should have a mulloway video to come. Fingers crossed, it's going to be my first one. I've still not caught mulloway. I need to catch one. Fingers crossed. See you in the next one.